Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll be building out the top of the car with the panel separations in mind. And using prior techniques, I've gone ahead and built out the front and back wheel well area, side area, the A-pillar, part of the back with the area for where the wing will be, as well as most of the front bumper and the hood area here. Also, while doing this, you may come up on areas where, and I'll just grab it and zoom in so you can see what I'm going to talk about here. You may come up in areas where verts inadvertently got moved, or the topology is just a little bit off for whatever reason. As I mentioned earlier, there'll be a lot of pulling and pushing of edges, and so when you're doing that, stuff can usually get wonky. So there's an area here, and there's an area here, and I'll just show you how to fix that when you come up on it. And a good deal of time can be spent fixing stuff like this, and this is so you don't get, valleys and peaks in your model, and you don't get that lumpy look. And so to better demonstrate this, I'll go ahead and apply a turbo smooth modifier, and I'll turn off my edge faces with F4, and you can see here that you're getting sort of a depression there. And while it's not as bad in the top area, you can still see it. All right, and so the fix for that is I'll just add an edit poly modifier to work on that. I typically try to add a new editable poly modifier whenever I'm making any kind of major changes or at different points in my workflow, just so I have a marker of where things got changed. And so you apply an edit poly modifier there, and then I'll switch to the top view, and I'll hit Z to zoom extents on that vert, and you can see where it goes in, and so that messes up the topology. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and in my edit poly modifier settings, I'll go to constraints, turn on edge, and I'll just move that vert constraint to this edge here. From the top view until it seems like it's fairly even with the rest of it. And so that will only get us partially there. I'll go ahead and toggle between my subdivision surface as well as my model. You can see the difference there already, but we're still needing it to move out a little so we can still get rid of that lumpiness. And so what I'll do here is I'll just move that up slightly, switch back to top to see what's going on here. And then I'll disable edge constraint, and I'll just move this out just a little bit. Then I'll switch to my perspective view, zoom into that vert. And a cool thing you can do here is if you hold Alt and right click, you'll get an option here to switch between the different gizmo options. And if I go screen, now I'm moving this in screen space, and I can slowly reposition that up and out until I feel like it's leveled out. Turn on my turbo smooth, and you can see that that fixed it. Same process to fix this here. Just zoom extent to the vert, and Alt, right click. I'll just go to world this time. I'll just move that up slightly. Switch between my modifier just to see what's going on. Move it up again. And what I'm doing here is basically just moving the vert up to kind of level things out. There's another one here that I'll do the same thing with. And I usually do a lot of this with the world or screen options. But again, this is just like the way you'd move your transform gizmo. You got all the different options here. Alrighty, so let me go ahead and deselect. All right, and you can see that the lumpiness is pretty much gone. And so that's something you would use to fix those kind of issues if you ran into them. Another thing that would be good to do here is to actually set up our pivot point so we can apply a symmetry modifier and see how our model's looking on both sides right now. So I'll go ahead and delete the turbo smooth, Then I'll go to hierarchy affect pivot only. And then I'll just zero the pivot out in the X. And what that does is it puts my pivot point sitting directly on my grid line here, which is what I'm using as a center line. There's multiple ways you can do this. When you started the model, you could have edited the pivot point then and moved it to the center line, or you could have gone into element mode, kind of like so, and just move the model in relation to the pivot if the pivot was already sitting on the zero grid line here. All right, so with that set up, let's just go ahead and apply a symmetry modifier, and I'm using my quick button once again. And that's definitely not what we're needing, but let's go ahead and just switch that to Z. F4 to turn on edge faces. And as you can see, we're having something that looks kind of like a car so far. Alrighty, so with that on, I can go to my edit poly, toggle end result, and now I can work between simply seeing my edit poly and just moving things around. Right, so let me go ahead and undo that. So what I'll do now is I'll switch to my top view, and I'll make sure my reference images are showing. And what I want to do here now is to start dragging out edges that are going to match up to these panels. And so I'll just switch to edge mode, and a cool thing you can do, make sure you're on the edit poly modifier. A cool thing you can do is if you double click on a border edge, that will select that entire edge loop. We're not needing that right now, but we will be using that throughout this course as time goes on. But what I'll do here is first, I'll grab this edge. I'll just drag it all the way over to here. Then I'll switch to vertex mode and just move this vertex up slightly, back to edge mode, and drag the edge over again, and then just grab this vert, move it up. And so we're trying to stick with the line here. I'll move this over slightly, and I can toggle between my turbo smooth, between my symmetry just to see what's happening here. Perfect. All right, and so with that there, just grab this vert. And again, just like when we started, we're just matching up edges and verts to the outline of our reference image here. Just move this out. Alrighty, and then what we'll need to do here is to get an edge in the center. I'll switch to vertex mode. You can just grab your scale tool, and if you scale in the X direction, those will eventually come to a point where they straighten out. And now it's just a matter of dragging this across. I can turn on my grid till it sits on my grid point. And I'll switch to my perspective view. And you can see that those meet up there. Let me turn off X-ray mode so you can better see what's going on. And I'll switch to edge mode so we don't have the vertices distracting us. All right, so now that's looking good, but we're not quite there yet. As has become the norm, we'd have to switch to another viewport and then move those verts in a way that would match up with our blueprint. And so I'll just grab these verts here, switch to my front viewport, just move that up. Grab these verts, front viewport, move that up. Grab these, move those up as well. I'll just switch to my perspective view so I can get a better idea of what's going on. Turn off my edge faces and just move around my model so I can see what is happening. And if you're getting like a little seam or anything here, it's just a matter of getting these verts aligned perfectly on the Z. Now, some people prefer to just drag these until they meet, or you can just, I think you can zero them out in the X here. All I did was right click on the X value that brings them together. And so what I'll do now is I'll just go ahead and apply a turbo smooth just to get an idea of what's happening. And that's what we're looking like there. And you can see that we've got a little bit of a depression going on in the back area here. So we'd just be needing to switch to the back view and move that upwards. And before that, if you're getting any weird transitioning like that, you can actually go ahead and grab your center verts and just move them back until that's fixed. And again, we just switch to the back view. And then back to vertex mode. And just move these bad boys up until we're getting sort of that nice curve that we're looking for there. And then what you could do is select these edges, connect them, switch back to vertex mode, and just move those up. And again, we're looking at the blueprint and just moving around the model and just repositioning things so that they match up and we get curves where we have them or any kind of areas where we have the edges following the guides. And I'll turn off edge faces so we can get a better look at this. All right, and so that's what we've gotten so far. I'll go back to X-ray mode so I can see through this. And you can tell that, you know, there would need to be support edges here. So we grab that, move it over, reposition that. And then add another edge there. And eventually we'll be going in and grabbing like areas like this and just detaching it so we have the separation where it is. But that's what you'd be doing. And so we'd repeat that process, you know, dragging edges and repositioning the verts so we have all this outline here until we've got the top of the vehicle modeled out. That's it for this lesson. I look forward to seeing you in the next.